Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we're going to be going over what I'm going to be league starting for patch 1.2 Tombs of the Erased. A lot of people were asking me, hey, what are you going to play? You've been testing a lot of different builds. What are you going to play? Well, I told them, wait until patch notes. Well, guess what's out? Patch notes. And I've spent the last, I think, dude, I don't know, like 8, 9, 10 hours looking at these, and I've done multiple theory crafts and I've done all the math and everything, and I finally landed on Fissure Smite. We're going to be playing Fissure Smite Lightning Paladin. So let's talk about why. If you don't know, Fissure in last Epoch, it was kind of a node that really didn't do anything for multiple different reasons. The biggest thing is it just felt like it did no damage whatsoever. Well, thankfully, there's some bug fixes, as we can see here. So let's read off the changes here. Heavy Impact grants 25% more damage for Fissure per point instead of 5. That's good. We always like less point investment. Area for less point investment. Nice. Fissure's description has been clarified to state it lasts 3 seconds, incorrectly stated 5, and has 200% added damage effectiveness per second, incorrectly stated 36, and that it consumes mana when triggered rather than having a mana cost. That's interesting. Cool. Fissure now requires a direct smite cast to trigger and has a base limit of 1 trigger per second instead of having a 0.5 cooldown. Now, that sounds bad, but let's talk about it some more. Fissure can now be converted to lightning by Order of Lagan. If you don't know, that's the node that allows your smite to be lightning instead, so that's important. Aftershock's functionality has been reworked. It now grants +1 max Fissure trigger per second from increased Fissure duration and added smite mana cost. Its maximum points have been reduced from 5 to 2. Okay. Fixed a bug where Fissure dealt base physical damage rather than fire. Okay. And after all of that, as you can see here, there was just a lot, and I mean a lot of problems that Smite had in terms of Fissure that was keeping it from being used. Specifically, this node here. We did not know about this. None of us knew about this. So now we have the new Fissure. Now, of course, in last Epoch tools, we still have the old Fissure, as you can see. This is the old Fissure, if I'm not mistaken, or whatever it is. Like, it's not properly giving the right damage effectiveness per second. Right now, it's 200% per second. So that's cool. Now, we can have 3 of these fissures down per second for 3 seconds. So we have 9 fissures per second. And 9 times 3 is like 1,800%. No, I mean, that's not what that meant. I did incorrect math, okay? So essentially, we're getting 3 fissures per second for 3 seconds. So that's 9 fissures total. That is a lot of damage effectiveness. That's 1,800% damage effectiveness. Now, that doesn't sound like that much, but then we combine it with Sacrifice, which multiplies it by 2.5. Cool. Then we multiply it by Heavy Impact, which is by 1.0. Then we multiply it by Abyssal Echoes, which is 20% more. Then we multiply it by the 24% increased damage taken by Crumbling. Okay. Then we get the copious, and I mean copious, amounts of spell damage over time that we can get access to as a paladin here. So we're going to go over here, lightning damage. 2,700% increased damage. Pretty good. Pretty good. Although, as you can see there's a line at the bottom of the tree here. It says 124% more lightning damage over time. Where is that coming from? Well, if you don't know, with the new Paladin, there's a node called Judgment of the Storm. You deal more lightning damage over time per 2% added critical strike multiplier above the base 200%. So if you get a very large amount of crit multi, you can make your smite which can be converted into lightning, which then converts Fissure into lightning, you can make it do a very large amount of damage. And that's currently the plan here. We're going to simply cast smites on the ground. They make fissures. We do lightning damage over time. Now, what's interesting though is we need to make sure that we can cast 3 times per second, because as you can see here with Fissure, last 3 seconds can only be triggered once per second. And then of course as well, we grab 2 points in Aftershock. So we have 3 total, but thankfully Smite has a 1.5 second base cast time for the most part. So as long as you have a little bit over 100% increased cast speed, you're going to be just fine. Now that's interesting because if you did not know, Devotion works for Smite subskills, including Fissure. So we can mana stack on top of everything else, get an extra 100% cast speed, which will overcap us on cast speed. And we can also get a bunch of flat spell damage. We can get a very large amount of it. And of course, we can either run a staff and a staff with like crit multi and stuff on it, or we can run a shield. Like we can run like a shield and a one-hander instead. Either way, then of course as well, we can get penetration, we can get shock chance, we can get all these things that will make our fissures do that much more damage. And then we can also play Paladin. Paladin has a lot of nice new stuff. Not only do we have more damage to Electrobite here, but Lightning Pen, we also have just access to a lot of chunk, thanks to like Pure Aegis and Reverence of Duality. We can also go into Voidite here with the newly changed Void Corruption, where we get a bunch of free crit multi from here as well. So we're getting 28% crit multi just for existing in Void Knight. We also get like a bunch of increased health. But essentially, being a Paladin means that we can build as much chunk as possible. And if I feel like as though I need more chunk, I can always just skip out on the staff and go for a wand and a shield. I'm not entirely sure if that'll be the best, but in theory it will be. I'm just not entirely sure. I will play day one and tell you what is better, a staff or a wand and shield. In theory, you could go for a like a staff that has what is it called? That has like, you know, flat melee damage on it, and then go for a Titan Heart. You can go for that as well. There's a few different ways of making ourselves tankier. I'm not really worried about that because day one, you don't have to really care about that. And then like after that, I could figure it out. Because like Twisted Heart can carry us as well, even with just the base 8% without any like investment into ward retention. This will easily give us like 1 to 2k to like 1 to 2k ward. We've done this before. Cool. So that's what we're going to be playing. Thanks to all the changes and all the fixes, we can finally play Fissure Smite and it do competitive amounts of damage, at least in theory, as long as there's no bugs, as long as everything is working. So if everything is working, this is what I'm going to be cycle starting. And thankfully, because we're going to be leveling a Sentinel, even if, let's say, for some odd reason it's not working, I can just play and pivot to a different build. Now, if you do end up playing this build, I will be making updates on it. So, of course, you know, make sure to subscribe to the channel and maybe like the video as well while you're at it. But this is what I'm going to be league starting for patch 1.2 Tombs of the Erased. Now, how am I going to level this? Well, thankfully, I've already done all that. This will get you all the way to level 40-ish. I would probably wait a little bit to swap into this stuff. You don't really get all the good stuff until you get a decent amount of points into Smite here, like getting it to like sacrifice and all that. And then you also want like the more damage here and all that. So you definitely want to wait to swap into sacrifice. Like you definitely want to wait to swap into Fissure till you have a decent amount of cast speed. And then once you have that cast speed, you're good to go and you can do plenty of damage all the way through, at least in theory from my calculations. And like I said, if you need a leveling guide, here you go. I will be doing a video day one, yada, 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 the usual stuff. I will be making my updates as I go along with the character, and then I'll be making changes from then. Do not take this planner as God. It will probably change multiple different times as I'm playing the build. Eventually, when I'm pushing higher amounts of corruption and I'm like trying to like do other stuff, I will make sure to probably make the character tankier. It's not going to be that difficult. The idea was I went complete overkill on the damage, and then we're going to simply peel back after that. Once we have the complete overkill on the damage, we can peel back after that, right? And that will be like when we figure it out from there. As you can see here, we can get a lot of percent increased damage here as well. Like, oh my goodness, I'm going to enjoy this build. So that's going to be it for me today. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Hopefully Smite's MTX actually looks good. Bye.